Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Meet, Do Some Good. I'm so glad you could join us. For those that don't know me, I'm Leo Rothschild, CEO of Cavanna Partners and founder of Calgary Climate Week. I'm joined today by Jeff Hofert, the Chief Operating Officer and Partnership Manager at Do Some Good, and Celeste Geisbauer, who is the Social Impact Manager. And just a little context setting, today's session is a bit different from a typical webinar. This isn't a walkthrough of the platform. It's not a demo. It's a conversation. It's a conversation about supporting communities, about growing an ecosystem, and creating real, tangible impact. So much of the work that's labeled community investment, social impact, can be hard to measure and difficult to manage, which is important while growing uncertainty across the economy is forcing everyone to justify their budgets and the outcomes associated with them. What you'll hear today is the story that most people don't get to hear about Do Some Good. You'll meet some of the folks behind this ambitious social enterprise, and they'll share why it was built, what they're actually trying to solve in the market, and why they're building all these unconventional partnerships across the media and social good landscape. And I'll be your guide through a series of questions designed to unpack their journey and what their unique approach could mean for your organization. So on that note, let's start at the beginning, because this really comes down to a simple but powerful idea. So Jeff, let me go to you first here. A lot of companies genuinely care and are doing meaningful work in their communities, but especially here in Canada, there's often a hesitation to talk about it because I don't know, I guess it could feel like bragging, perhaps. Do you think that companies should be sharing more of what they're doing? And if so, how do they do that in an authentic way rather than through sort of corporate speak, which sometimes tends to happen?
Yeah, so I guess the big thing is people want to support good companies. They want to work for good companies. They want to shop and support companies that are really, supporting the community and helping. And so, a few years ago, Imagine Canada came out with a report and it talked about how over 50% of people before they accept a job offer will go seek out your community giving on your website or your social media. And so if you're not sharing these things, you're missing out on things like attraction of top talent. You're missing out on opportunities that impact your entire business. Um, Most definitely, there is this Canadian humbleness. We've dealt with it for years. I think that at the end of the day, people want to do things for pure reasons, and I fully respect that. On the flip side of that is people who just really want to know and at this point are demanding to know about who are you as a company, what are your values. So it's not about bragging, it's really about sharing who you are, what are your values, as well as in sharing stories about the causes you support, the charities, the nonprofits. You also lift them up in that process, which is really important. So one thing we focused on is just the power of those third party stories or testimonials. The best story that can be told about your business is a charity or nonprofit speaking about the good that you're doing, the impact that you've helped create. And so that's really a big part of this, is how you can empower those ambassadors essentially for your brand. So that's really what we focused on, helping companies really share impact in a way that is still very authentic.
So yeah, thank you. You picked up on that point about authenticity and really sort of empowering what you're kind of referring to as ambassadors. I think that's a really interesting way to frame it. Um, Jeff, let me ask you before we sort of like talk about the actual platform itself, which I think is important, and there's probably folks that are joining us here that have never seen it and are kind of interested in knowing more about it. But But before we go there, I'd love to sort of understand your story a little bit. What led you and the team to build Do Some Good in the first place?
Yeah, we're going back probably about 12 years. So I actually used to be a teacher. And so I moved to Kelowna, BC to be closer to my family. Excuse me. And so when I first moved here, I was actually helping schools uh, line up and connect students with volunteer opportunities. And I didn't think it was going to be that hard, but it really was. It was cold calling nonprofits and charities because I needed to know which organizations would take group of students and students this age and things like that. So there was a group back then called the Okanagan Changemakers. It was a social impact group that had kind of meetups, and I met this guy, Sheldon Gardner, amazing human, great guy. We gravitated to each other because we're both like small town Saskatchewan boys. So um, we had a lot of shared values. And I told him what I was working on, and he looks at me and he goes, Jeff, I have two young daughters. Like it really shouldn't be this hard for young people to get involved in our community. And that was really the impetus behind Do Some Good, is that we wanted to make it easy to get involved, to find ways to help support local causes. So ultimately, we started with those real problems: volunteerism, community engagement. Um, we did napkin drawings over beers back then. And, at the end of the day, we didn't start by building software. We really started by trying to solve real world problems that we were experiencing.
I love that. Um, and thanks for giving a shout out to like the teachers of the world. I love that that's part of your background. But I think that's just so yeah, just that is so important about the idea of solving problems. You didn't start with like here's some cool gadgets, here's some cool tech. It was really like how do we empower people to solve problems and get involved in their community. Um, I I want to bring you, Celeste, into this conversation as well and ask you, why do so many companies still struggle to manage donations? Like, it seems like sponsorships and community programs, should be sort of like easy. Um, how I guess where do most platforms fall short, and how can the Do Some Good platform, how can your work help people to do this more effectively?
That's a really good question, and it ties into my experiences actually because I have worked in the community investment and corporate social responsibility world for 20 years now. And so I used to give out money for a living, and what a great job that was, and a great feeling. But it isn't easy. It is not just a matter of approving or declining requests. There's a lot of strategy that goes into it. On the request side, though, you do get bombarded with requests from all angles. You get by email, snail mail, phone, people stopping you on the street. I've had that happen, asking for asking for money. Um, and so ultimately, when you have all of these requests coming in, you need some sort of a system. And surprisingly, we've spoken with companies, national companies, who are using a spreadsheet and email still to manage their quite a large load of requests that come in. And so we were hearing this, and we thought, there's, like, as Jeff said, there's got to be a better way. And so we created Do Some Good and the donation sponsorship request system, um, which we can dig into a little bit maybe later, but um, just to help organize things for people and save them time so they're not working on busy work all the time. These are smart professional people who have a large number of skills, and they need to be put to work in the right way. Um, Ultimately, most teams aren't lacking in intent. We feel they're just lacking in infrastructure, and that's what we aimed to provide at Do Some Good. In terms of what um, I think some platforms are lacking. I think that comes, for me, two things come to mind. One would be that which seems like a no brainer, but they don't make it easy. They don't make the platform itself easy to navigate. Uh, they take something, a profession that's already complex, and they make it even more complex. And we've heard that from companies who use different platforms, that it can be a bit clunky or outdated, or even just difficult to navigate or pull reports or find their impact data. And we definitely wanted to go another route with that. And so we worked hard to make Do Some Good as easy and intuitive to use as possible. Um, I would say another thing that comes to mind is storytelling. We believe storytelling is hugely important part of community programming and community investment. And I do feel like I would say most platforms don't have storytelling elements integrated into their platforms, and that was something we wanted to do. Um, and when it comes down to it, great work is happening. It's getting buried in inboxes and spreadsheets, and we wanted to make that whole process simple for people.
Yeah, that I don't know. Forgive me for smiling as you were talking about like the simplicity. Like obviously, shouldn't that be kind of a given? So I think but I understand because I hear that feedback too, that people are saying systems we're using are not sort of custom built for what we actually need to do. So that seems like it should be a given. Um, but I hear you also saying that there's you called it infrastructure, and and Jeff, I guess I'm inviting you to build on that because I guess I'm wondering, what did you see differently that led you to how Do Some Good is built today? You know, so there was kind of talk about other platforms. It seems to me like most platforms in this space are traditional SaaS tools or software as a service tools that are built for like internal use. But Do Some Good, I don't know, it feels different, right? Like it seems like I've heard you describe it as more of a community engagement model. What does that mean to you? And and I guess and why does that matter for somebody that's looking at, implementing software?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say there are some awesome tools out there first and foremost, and as you said, kind of those enterprise solutions or SaaS tools are uh, typically created and used in silos. So great for task management for getting things done. Where we're different in that community engagement model you're speaking to is really that we made a decision from day one that yes, we would have tools that add value for businesses that they can use to solve issues within their company and manage things effectively. But we wanted to make it a tool that could also be used by nonprofits, by charities, by community groups, as well as by the general public and volunteers. So when I was talking about that youth component, we wanted to still make it so that a young person could come on and find a way to get involved and do something in their local community alongside. And so it truly is, um, you know, a a full rounded picture of the entire community rather than just a business tool. And there are, and we'll probably speak to this a bit more, but a ton of network effects of that. When I started, I said the best story or testimonial you can get is a charity or nonprofit speaking about the good you're doing rather than you kind of sharing it yourself. It comes across much more effective, more authentic, all of that. That's the benefit of having those charities and nonprofits right on the same tool and system you're on, is they're right there with you at the same time. So I think, truly how we're different is when you look at it, we didn't build another tool, we built an ecosystem.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That you're talking about building out an ecosystem, and I guess for everybody watching, I just think this is such an important point. So I just don't want it to be lost. What we're doing here. isn't like a sales pitch or anything, right? Really, I really felt like if folks sort of heard from you about your intentions here, that they would get a really strong feeling of like why this is special, why I think it's really special. And I think one of those reasons is because you seem to be really committed to that ecosystem and being an integral part of it. So I just I, yeah I can't say enough about sort of what you're getting at there when you say that. But okay, so we've talked a lot about the sort of the ethos behind the platform. Let's talk about the platform itself. So somebody who's never experienced it, never logged on, how do you typically introduce it to people? Like in its kind of simplest terms, how do you describe the Do Some Good platform?
Yeah, in its entirety, it's a platform powering giving, volunteering, and impact storytelling. When we've talked to people, we've sometimes kind of jokingly said it's like a LinkedIn for local good. And so, it really is kind of one place you can come to manage, to measure, and to share impact. And I think on the company side of things, really, it's about helping make community giving easy. And so, ultimately, what that looks like in practice is kind of three buckets. It's impact storytelling, it's request management, and it's employee volunteerism. So we do have some companies using all of those features. We have some companies using a mix and match of those. And interesting, in the last couple of years, especially, we do have companies who already are using, you could say, our competitors or competitive tools. They already have that in place, but they're also using us for their impact storytelling at the same time to complement or supplement things. So there's a big enough growth and understanding of how important storytelling is that they see the gaps there and some of the other tools aren't doing it. So we can run side by side at the same time.
Yeah, that feels significant that folks are seeing the opportunity rather than necessarily sort of displacing existing systems to complement existing systems. I think that's really interesting. Um, Celeste, just to have you weigh in here too, in your experience, sort of what are you seeing for, as somebody who's kind of looking at the impact here? When somebody actually logs in, what does the experience look like for them? Like especially, the first time they log in.
Right. So even one step before that, they receive quite a warm welcome from us. Um, uh, we consider customers part of our Do Some Good family, and that might sound a little cheesy, but we truly believe that. And I think one of the biggest things that I noticed from working at Do Some Good is that we don't just give you a link to log in and then see you later, and we don't help you out, anymore after that. So we're always with you every step of the way. When you first log in, you're going to find a really easy to use interface. People have even described it as fun to use. And you actually get guided through steps through onboarding, and you're actually asked first to choose your most important goal, and then you are given a personalized path from there. We felt that was really important because every company is different. Everyone runs their community programs different. Everyone's coming in with a different goal. Some want to start with storytelling. Some want to dig right into getting their community program set up. So we felt it was important to have a bit more of a guided process there. And I know it might be hard to believe, but onboarding for us actually takes just minutes. We've worked hard over the years to scale it down and down and down just to the core pieces, and I've even timed it, so it is true that it takes just minutes, because I wanted to be able to talk the talk, and so ultimately we know everyone's busy, and we're just trying to make your life easier. We say that a lot. We're just trying to make your life easier.
I'll, yeah, I mean that sounds good. I think that you're talking a lot about the service, and I know just from working with you that um, your your team's just like so good at really being responsive and really wanting to solve on behalf of the customers. Um, the for anybody that's taken a look at this software before, probably, especially if they've looked at it like a year ago, some of them would probably be really surprised at like where it's at today, because I know the platform has evolved quite a bit, partly because you are being so responsive to the people who are users. Give folks an update, and especially like the what you refer to as your hero feature set. And I know that there's the Do Some Good Advanced, which I've heard you describe as application management 2.0. For folks that aren't aware of any of this and these features, give us an update and unpack some of this.
Yeah, so for customers who have been with us, like we have customers with us since day one, still with us. We have a lot of companies that been on 5, 6, 7, 8 years, some 10 to 11 years. Um, and it's evolved. Like you said, if you looked at it back then, today it's evolved so drastically. We started with employee volunteerism features. That was our first kind of business feature set at the very beginning. Storytelling has always been in there, but it's kind of very much grown throughout the years and in popularity and how it's evolved. Um, a couple of years back, we were speaking with Federated Cooperatives Limited, and they were looking for kind of grant management, donation, sponsorship management features. And we had just a very basic set. It was just extremely basic at that time. And so we actually worked with them in collaboration to develop those features. And so we launched that quite a few years ago. I want to say 3 or 4. And really what Federated Cooperatives was looking for is a tool for all of their retail co-ops across Western Canada to streamline the management of those requests all in one tool. And so that was kind of like the first step of that system. Do Some Good Advanced is really the next iteration. And that launched in August of last year, so not that long ago. And it was probably, I'd say, near a year of development. And beyond that, probably over a year of research and listening. I think early days, we made decisions on what features were included. It was based on research and whatnot. Now it's based on customers and just opening our ears, really just asking them a bunch of questions. We had brainstorming sessions. We had, surveys. We had just, what is your wish list? What would you love to see? What are your pain points with other tools? And so we just took all of that and then tested and went back and forth. So we're not responsible for Do Some Good Advanced. Our customers are. And it has been amazing to kind of see how it's evolved. As far as what it is it's that request system end to end. So we see companies using it for grants, sponsorships, donations, bursaries, scholarships, surveys, basically anything where you could use a form for. And we do have, like, those are business features. We actually do have some foundations on our platform using those business features because they have actually quite similar needs when it comes to some of that as well. And we really reimagined every step. So it starts out with, like, you can create a company branded form. We have a form builder, which is like a MailChimp drag and drop builder. So you're fully empowered and in control over everything. Reviewer workflows. So you can have people, different teams come in and review things and score things and weight them. The communications built in, so you can communicate back and forth with applicants, budgeting, custom reporting. It's basically everything. And I would argue at this point, we're not only competitive, but like have surpassed many of the tools out there, especially going back to what Celeste said around user experience. Like, it's very powerful features, and it's really tough to offer that while still making it simple or easy to use. the magic point where you can figure out those two things kind of colliding together. So I believe we've done that. I mean, since we've launched it, we've still got feedback. We've continued to make iterations. So um, I think at the end of the day, it isn't about, forms or workflows. I think it's really more about like eliminating friction. It's about empowering your team. It's about, unlocking the full potential of really what your programs can and should deliver. So, I won't get into this fully right now, but we did then extend and take this to the next level where using that same system, you can also at the same time you're getting in applications, you can automate storytelling. So you can have amazing structured impact stories with zero additional work. And so that is, the power of Do Some Good Advance. It really is trying to, solve a core problem, but also getting benefits of other things you're trying to do, typically side of desk.
Jeff, I love how you said that you're not responsible for Do Some Good Advance. Your customers are. I thought that was great. And just to sort of pick up on something that's come up a few times, you talked about that storytelling feature, and from my point of view, when we first started working together, it was the part that I was most excited about in having a closer look at your platform, and it seems to me like it's just a true differentiator. There's really nobody else in the market doing that, and certainly not doing it the way you're doing it. And so Celeste, I guess let me invite you to build on that storytelling thread, because most platforms I mean, they're focused on tracking, of course, but you're you're going further with this emphasis on storytelling. Why was that important?
Well, tracking and gathering quantitative data is vastly important. That kind of data can fuel decision making. It can directly impact budgets every year, and impact even business strategy. And so I it's important. It's absolutely important. We just felt that the qualitative piece was missing and was equally as important. And we often say that data tells you what happened, but stories make people care. And so the we kind of consider the stories, storytelling that comes out of the donations you give, or the sponsorships, or the scholarships, or the bursaries. That's the heart and soul of your community programming. We also recognize it's not easy. Again, it's complex. I know from experience, picking up the phone, calling charities and nonprofits that we've supported, asking them for a story or a quote, asking them for photos. Oh, and then we need photo release forms, and then we need approvals of the entire story. And this was a lot of back and forth, a lot of time. It could take sometimes days before you have a written story, and you can only kind of create so many in a given year. And so we've really streamlined that entire process. We've actually automated storytelling. And so you can have stories coming in automatically for you, auto generated from those ambassadors that Jeff was speaking to earlier. And they come in rights cleared and ready to post. And you can get, I know we had one company who put out a form to gather stories, and received 100 stories in just a couple weeks. And I mean, no, I don't think even as a full-time worker that a human being could write, get that many stories with all the details that you need from charities and nonprofits in a year, never mind 3 weeks. So that was really shocking to us and impressive. And people, like Jeff said, want to do business with and work for companies who match their values and who are doing good in the community. And the only way they're going to know about that is if you share your story and you have it on your website and your social channels and your newsletters and all of that. And we, through a suite of integrations and a story generator tool, we've made that super easy. And we do think if you're not sharing your story on a regular basis, you're really missing out.
Yeah, thank you for that, Celeste. I love that quote. I might borrow that at some point here. Data tells you what happened, but stories are what make people care. I like that a lot. I think that that's well said. And Jeff, I want to ask you about all these incredible partnerships that you've developed that are part of how the stories get out. But before I go there, I want to ask you sort of maybe a more challenging question because this is something that I've heard from talking to folks about your platform, and some of them are saying that you know they may some of them may have like multiple layers of internal approvals and like brand considerations that they need to be concerned about. How do you actually enable storytelling to happen like efficiently in that kind of sort of multi-layered environment?
Yeah, so when we built Do Some Good Advance and we needed more extensive roles and permissions for reviewers and whatnot, we extended that system to storytelling because you want to be able to make sure that some people maybe they can only submit stories for approval and they have to go through queues versus people who can post stories live. So roles and permissions are the number one kind of starting point is just making sure people who have access and shouldn't have access. Um, you have full moderation control over everything you post as well as anything that is posted about you. So if a charity, nonprofit, whatnot posts a story to help kind of as an ambassador, you have the ability to fully moderate that. Um, at the end of the day, you have more control and it's safer than social media. Like it is, and this is really, again, finding that sweet spot, finding that perfect balance between like empowerment and control. I just to kind of give some context here, most people, when we looked at all the research, want raw, authentic stories. So, in answering this question, Leor, I'm kind of also going to push back and say, like, for businesses that do have so many levels of red tape, try to get rid of a few because it's important and I get brand control and all of that. But at the end of the day, the stuff that is really resonating with people is the stuff that is a bit flawed or vulnerable. And so you need to make sure that you don't lose those opportunities to have stories that truly connect, not get through those levels of red tape. And just I did want to add because I'm sure people are on the call going like, because Celeste had mentioned automated stories. This is not AI. And I want to say that because, excuse me, what's important is that the words and the voice of you and your ambassadors still shines through. There needs to be that authenticity. I 100% believe that AI can streamline things and can help with getting you or helping you get towards a story. But I do think at the end of the day, what's really important is that it is as human as possible because people they want to feel that connection and understand it. So uh, it is impossible to truly get across how powerful Story Generator is, what Celeste was talking about, how some of our new features are where you can, it's like Hootsuite push to all your social or even sync where you can pull in stories from your social automatically. There's a lot to that system. Some of it you just have to see to believe because it is one of those things where people look at it and they have a wow moment. A light bulb goes off and they go, I get it. So I definitely hope that we are able to speak to some of you and also I guess future people watching this video just to show them really what's possible when you can really streamline storytelling but still maintain authenticity within that process.
Jeff, I didn't expect you to like be sort of giving the advice on like the pushback. So I appreciate where that's coming from. I know that comes from a lot of experience, and I can also say, having worked for some big companies, as somebody who's been a sustainability professional, like you put some content together and then it turns into like corporate gobbledygook and you lose that authenticity. And so I think that that's a real theme that you're doing a really effective job at sort of threading through this conversation that I really want to emphasize because I think that that's both what you've tried to sort of build into the platform, but I think also why I really wanted people to experience this conversation because I hope that people will see that that's really what comes across from you and Celeste and others on your team that you're doing this to really enable positive impact and these really good stories at a time when we need positive stories because there's a lot of negative stuff going on in the world. And so to pick up on that, one of the really exciting and pretty unconventional things that you've been dedicating some of your time to recently is developing a number of media partnerships. So that seems to be a pretty unique aspect of your work. Why media companies and how does that actually work?
Yeah, we kind of tripped on this. This wasn't planned. So early days when companies on our platform were getting all this great stories and testimonials in, and they were sharing those on their internet and their social and to their website, we had media companies looking at us and going like, "Hey, there's some really cool stories coming out of your platform. Do you have more? Do you have other stories from charities and volunteers, etc.?" So it was something that kind of we did stumble upon. What I would say is that, um, you know, like any industry, times can be tough, and media is cutting down on local reporters, resources, and yet local readers are actually pushing back and saying like we're tired of the doom and gloom, and we're also, everything seems to be regional, national, and there's very few local stories. So we found ourselves in a kind of really perfect place to kind of power local good stories on media sites. And so for all of our audiences, our charities, our businesses, our volunteers, it means extra reach and exposure. It means more support, more volunteerism, more impact. Um, and for media, they're loving having that user generated local content shared on their sites. So definitely a thank you to Pattison Media. We've rolled out with them across the 4 Western provinces. So if you're posting on our platform, it's hitting into their sites. And just recently partnered with Metroland Media in Ontario. So we're starting a pilot with them in about a month, and then hoping to expand all across Ontario as well. So I do think this is just the beginning. I know sometimes people ask questions about like, well, how does it actually work? Just to quickly describe, basically, we power a section on their site. They have given us basically a space that we have full control over. So what that means is that when people post stories on our platform, we have a staff member that reviews the stories and they choose to promote it. The media is not involved at all. We have an agreement with them. We agree on what stories should or shouldn't. But ultimately, when you post stories, it's up to our team to decide what goes there. And then you get an email saying it's been promoted to these sites, and you get an email saying here's the reach after a certain amount of time. So basically, some stories are hitting one media site if it's like a local story. Some stories are hitting regional and they could hit 15, 20 sites. And some story are hitting media sites all across Canada if they're more national in scope.
I I want to make sure that I'm leaving some time for others. You've done a really good job of highlighting the unique partnerships that you've developed. I'm gonna just open it up for some questions from the group of folks that have joined us here today. But before I transition to that, I just want to get a sense from you because you're talking about these really unique partnerships. Um, what kind of companies are you seeing coming to take advantage of these unique opportunities that both your platform and these partnerships provide? And kind of like what's the ideal customer for Do Some Good?
Yeah, so I would say that we are built for companies of all sizes. So some of our competitors focus more on the large and enterprise size companies, but we felt it was really important to also include small and medium sized businesses. They all have amazing stories to tell. The whole shop local movement that has continued on has proved that. So we are trusted by small and medium sized companies and large and enterprise sized companies alike. We have um, some customers who are a handful of employees in one office, right up to regional and national companies. Um, so we cater to all. Um, what we like to do is be really flexible with our features and our packages. It's not a one size fits all. It's not that you pay for 100% of the features, but you're only going to use 60% of them. We customize and tailor to your needs and meet you where you are. Um, yeah.
So I feel like that's another sort of unique differentiator that you have is that others in this space typically focus on just sort of the largest companies in various sectors and are not looking more broadly beyond that. So I think that's a unique factor. Um, I want to invite others to ask some questions of Jeff and Celeste. Um, and note that, of course, we are recording this session so that we can share it with others. If you're not comfortable asking a question on video, please put it in the chat. We'll read it like sort of anonymously. But if you are comfortable, would love for you to just come off of mute. Please feel free to put your video on and ask your question to Jeff and Celeste. And if you need another moment to formulate that, that's no problem. I'm gonna go ahead and ask one more question if that's okay. Um,
I see
uh,
that Aaron has his hand up
oh,
actually.
thank you. Yeah, Aaron, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. This has been a really interesting conversation and great to be a part of it. So thanks for the time today. Um, just a bit curious about AI integration with the platform. And Celeste, you talked a bit about the story generator. And so I'm curious a bit about how AI is being used or could be used in the future, both with the story generator tool and also we're implementing a new rewards and recognition platform this year, and part of me wonders if there isn't some kind of API uh, that Do Some Good could offer, or that we could find a way for the two systems to talk to each other, where also AI could be used to sort of track some of the recognition that also speaks to maybe community impact that's happening. Like, for example, when a small group of employees um, takes on a wellness initiative and raises money for something like Alzheimer's, how that can then become a Do Some Good story, but maybe not something that we're pushing out through a Do Some Good platform because it's not money that we're necessarily donating to a cause, if that makes sense. So just a kind of a question around AI.
I'm going to throw it to Jeff. I know that's more in his wheelhouse than mine.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we just finished doing the filling out. Realize Worth does a every 2 years technology review. They look at every platform in the world. They look at what features are using, where you're heading, etc. AI was definitely a big topic this year. The one thing I will start with is saying that automation does not equal AI, and AI does not equal automation. So you can have automated stories and all that with authenticity, and it still doesn't use any AI. And there is no AI in that process purposefully. I think part of that is because we have a lot of financial institutions, credit unions, and different types of companies on our platform. Using AI in certain ways would absolutely be against all of our data policies and privacy policies, etc. So we host all data, everything in Canada. We're very particular about that. And so you have to be cautious with some of those things out there. We do plan on integrating AI. We see the value. It would be basically a machine that is ours and that would be hosted in Canada, and data would not go outside. Even the ability to perform functions without any internet capabilities, so that it is not possible to leak information, etc. So we do integrate with a ton of tools out there, Aaron. We actually just recently created integrations with Zapier, and it integrates with 8,000 different tools. So at this point, we can probably pretty much integrate with anything out there, any type of other tool. There's definitely ways to do so. I don't know if that fully answers the question, but I think that was hopefully helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay, well, feel free to formulate your questions, but I do have one other one because like different companies have different sort of levels of complexity. Like, for example, some companies may be like a franchise. Other companies might have like multiple, locations. Like there's associations, for example. Um, what can you, how, yeah, can you speak a little bit to like sort of working with different kinds of customers who have different levels of complexity in their business structures?
I'm fairly confident we may be the only platform that does this. I could be wrong, but our infrastructure, because it's so unique in kind of what we talked about earlier, that it's not in silos, actually opens up a lot of opportunity. And so if you're like a franchise, like you said, an association, a multi kind of location company, what's interesting is that we've created our platform in a way that's very interconnected. So the way I'll describe this is federated cooperatives. FCL at their high level as an umbrella wanted to know the collective impact and data and reporting and storytelling of their entire network of retail co-ops across Western Canada. So all of the retail co-ops have their own account and they're using it for their purposes, streamlining requests, etc. But all of their data and storytelling can then feed up to kind of an umbrella so that FCL can share the story of their entire network. And most platforms are quite siloed, so they can't allow that, or it's impossible to kind of interconnect in that way. So I think it's quite unique. And again, there are many different ways that work very different. I think that's one, is that you can achieve both your kind of singular local focus, but also your collective kind of more network focus.
Awesome. I'm gonna move us towards a close here, and certainly for anybody who has another question, feel free to put it in the chat, and we can definitely incorporate it before we close. But I asked you about your sort of origin story. Talk you told us a little more about the actual platform itself. I'm going to put a link in the chat here in a moment that gives people an opportunity to actually test drive it themselves. So that's something that I strongly encourage. But before I do that, I wanted to, Jeff, just invite you to sort of give us a bit of a like forward-looking kind of aspect here. So if folks are thinking, I'm interested in this. I and my company, my organization want to be a leader in this space. What do you see as, sort of based on the fact that you're working with so many different organizations, you're really engaged in the ecosystem at large, you're focused on the impact, and you created a platform positioned to equip people. What do you see as leadership in sort of the next 3 to 5 years as it relates to this space and the social impact ecosystem?
I'm going to bridge two different answers together here, so bear with me. I feel like if anyone's on this call or watching the video, you're interested in maybe change, maybe something new, maybe something innovative, maybe at least learning what's out there. I want to just share a couple things that make us truly different, because whether you choose do some good or not, there are certain kind of criteria as you think about community investment and tools and anything as you move forward, just to be really mindful of as we move into the future. So one, we mentioned we're a community platform. Whether you choose a tool that's community based or not, just think about the benefits of how those organizations and charities can be your ambassadors. That's really key to authenticity, because authenticity and trust is absolutely everything. When it comes to even what Aaron was saying, their integrations, think about as you move forward, maybe not one tool needs to solve everything. But at the end of the day, you need to think about integrations, because if you are choosing the best of both worlds, you want them to speak to each other, or you want them to work together so it's not double work or extra work for you. We're proud that we built this thing from the ground up. The beauty of that is that if you're doing a request over here, you get a story over there. That's the beauty of like things interacting with each other and value kind of really helping each other out in how you drive value at your company. Storytelling is key. It's not going away. It should be part of what you do, no matter what. How you do it, there's some different areas of subjectivity there, but sharing who you are and your values is a must. I would encourage everyone to get plugged into some of the networks out there. We decided, that we can't do this all alone. So we've been really focused on partnerships recently. Groups like Imagine Canada and Greater Purpose and Future of Good and Volunteer Canada. If you look at the types of networks out there, definitely get plugged in. There's some great ones. One key aspect of this as well is not just thinking about your own business, but what you're trying to accomplish. The beauty of our platform and what we're working on is that you can use it for your purposes, but it also means that you being involved means charities, nonprofits use it for free. I look at Integris Credit Union. They came on, and I think within a few weeks, they had 100+ charities and nonprofits on the platform that they invited. Every single one of those charities and nonprofits now can raise more awareness, do better job, get more support, and they can do that all for free because of Integris as a customer of ours. That's powerful, because when you talk about multiplying an exponential impact, it really is about the larger picture, not just the dollars or the time you give. So sorry for the long-winded, but just to come back to it, Lior, I will say fairly boldly, if you're not focusing on community investment, doing good in your community, sharing that story, there will be a point where your company will not exist. I know that's bold, but at the end of the day, everyone's making decisions based on their values. And there will be companies that thrive because they are sharing who they are. And if you look at our hometowns, I grew up in small town Saskatchewan. It was Jerry's Lumberyard. We did business because he sponsored our baseball team. That world still exists, even with the noise of the internet. I also, last note, I'm done here, Lior, but I'm saying this. Please share the good you're doing, no matter where it is. It inspires more goodness. It's not about you. It's about how you can inspire more good. And I'll be honest right now, like that's the world I want to live in. A world that celebrates goodness, that celebrates kindness, and that creates this ripple effect.
I feel like that's a great place to end. I'm glad that you touched on the benefit to the charity organizations. And just to add one more thing, in this spirit of like the fact that we need more positive news stories, the charity organizations also need to have their stories told about the wonderful work they're doing. That's where the impact lies. So honored to be in a position to help tell your story or help illuminate your story. In the chat, folks will see that I put a link to book a very short demo to test drive the Do Some Good platform. So that's a really great next step. I'll end the recording there. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And thank you to especially to Jeff Hofert and Celeste from Do Some Good. And we're really pleased to be able to learn a lot more about the wonderful work you're doing. Thank you.